One common assumption in society will be that mental health problems only affect people of a certain age, when in fact the reality is that it can happen to any gender and at any age. Research shows that half of all reported mental health cases begin at the age of 14. While that age may be fairly young, scientists are finding that physical changes leading to an actual mental illness start occurring in the body much earlier or even before the signs of any symptoms. Although mental health concerns don't immediately equate to serious mental illness like depression or bipolar disorders or schizophrenia, they are just as important to monitor and treat. What may be disguised as a minor health complication when you are young can easily be the prelude to a serious mental illness later on. Because your mental health is actually the combination of all the psychological, biological, and all the social factors around you. It's important to get evaluated by a medical professional before making any assumption. Early medical mental health support is likely to be more effective in either treating or helping people gain more control over their mental health. Now when we talk about the do's and don'ts while supporting somebody who is going through any sort of mental illness, first let's talk about do's. When we talk about some of the do's, it says that practice assertive communication. Communication is the key to a very happy life. It's very important to communicate with people, communicate with every person, because towards the end, we are all social beings and social animals. We need to communicate. Communication, it says that cultivating the art of assertive communication, you take the ownership of your feelings and concerns and communicate them without finger pointing. And you listen and provide your friend or the person who is suffering with some sort of mental illness the emotional support. To do this practice, using the statements like I, begin sentences with I am worried, I'm concerned, or I've noticed. Then explain your concerns to your friend. Researchers suggest avoid saying you don't seem like yourself or you haven't been hanging out as much as you usually do. They can create defensiveness in the person receiving the message. The next thing which you should do is show empathy. Empathy is something putting yourself in the shoes of the other person, making the other person realize that you can feel what he or she is trying to communicate. Think about how you would feel if you were coping with the symptoms of depression or any sort of mental health and how you would want your friends to react. Maintain eye contact when listening and say things like, that sounds hard. I'm sorry you're going through this and I'm always here for you. By responding to your friend in an open and empathetic way, you show them that they aren't a burden. Next is set boundaries. It's okay to be specific about when you can or can't. Be there for your friend. For example, let your friend know that it's better for you to talk after your kids are in bed. And don't accept abusive or violent behavior. If they don't stop, do what's best for your health and safety. Next is be patient. There's no quick fix to depression. The recovery process takes time and you have to be very patient enough. Now when we talk about the don'ts, then don'ts says that you don't have to be with the other person in that manner. You don't have to react in a very defensive way. The whole point of communication and dealing with the person who's suffering from any sort of mental health needs that certainty and that assurance that the other person can confide in you. So you have to give the other person the space. Next is don't blame yourself on others. People with mental health problems have a tendency to find fault for their condition, either within themselves or with others. Don't isolate yourself. The person who's suffering from mental health should never isolate themselves. It's very important for them to express their feelings and come up with their issues. Isolating yourself will only lead to more harm. Next is never interrupt the treatment program. It's important that the person who's suffering from any mental issue should have a proper medical consultation, and that should not hinder the process. Next, don't drink or make use of unprescribed drugs. While dealing with the person who's suffering from any mental health issue, you should always take care that the other person is not using any sort of unprescribed drugs or any sort of wrong things. The whole point is that mental illness is something which can be fought very easily if you have the right support and right guidance from the right people. This was all about the video when we talk about the do's and don'ts of mental health, of a person who's suffering from mental health.